is dark. Only the sound of your heartbeat fills the silence. Slow, uneven, almost uncertain. Then a whisper rises somewhere in your mind. When did you stop believing in yourself? You don't answer. You just stare at the faint outline of your reflection in the mirror before you. The glass is fogged, distorted, almost refusing to show the truth. You wipe it clean, and there you are. Not the version of you that smiles for the world, but the one that hides behind it. The eyes are tired. The expression is heavy. The reflection looks like a stranger who's been pretending to be fine for too long. You can feel it, that quiet ache in your chest. It's the weight of unspoken dreams, the years of playing small, the fear of being seen and judged. Every morning you put on your invisible armor, the polite smile, the steady tone, the calm disguise that says, I'm okay. But deep down, you know you've been performing. You've been editing yourself for acceptance, lowering your volume so others feel comfortable. You've been surviving, not living. The day moves on like a script you've read 100 times. You wake up, scroll through a feed of lives that look brighter than yours, put on your clothes, and walk into another day that feels predictable and safe. Too safe. At work, you nod through conversations, keep your thoughts to yourself, and let your real ideas die in silence before they ever reach your lips. Every time you stay quiet, a small part of you fades. Every time you hold back, your reflection dims a little more. You tell yourself it's better this way, that staying small protects you from mistakes, from judgment, from failure. But deep down, you know it's a lie. It's not safety you're chasing, it's comfort. And comfort has become your cage. The truth is, your fear didn't begin here. It began long ago, in a classroom, on a stage, in a moment that still lingers. You can still see it. You were younger, braver then. You raised your hand, spoke your mind, and said something wrong. The laughter was soft, but it burned deep. That day, something inside you broke, something innocent and free. You learned that standing out could hurt. You learned that mistakes meant humiliation, so you built a wall around yourself, one brick for every rejection, every disappointment, every moment you didn't feel enough. Years passed, and that wall became a home. You filled it with logic. It's better to stay quiet. It's better not to risk it. It's better to be invisible than to be wrong. And yet, every night, when the world is silent and your mask comes off, you can feel the emptiness echoing inside. It's the sound of a life unlived. You lie awake, scrolling through other people's victories, their smiles, their successes, their confidence, and somewhere between envy and exhaustion, a realization hits you. You've been comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reels. You've been measuring your worth through the lens of illusion. The voice of doubt inside your head whispers its usual lines. You're not good enough. You're too late. You don't have what it takes. But tonight, something inside you pushes back. A whisper softer, but stronger. What if they're wrong? You rise slowly and walk to the mirror again. The same reflection stares back, but it feels different now. You see two versions of yourself, the one that fear has shaped and the one waiting to be born. The space between them is not distance, it's choice. You realize that confidence isn't something people are born with. It's something they build, moment by moment, decision by decision. It begins the instant you stop running from your reflection. You lean closer to the glass and whisper, I'm tired of being afraid. The words feel strange but powerful, as if you said something sacred. For the first time, you don't look away. You just breathe. That's the first act of courage. Not a grand declaration, not a perfect performance, just a breath that says, I'm still here, I'm still trying. The next morning feels slightly different. The world hasn't changed, but you have. You start to notice how often fear dictates your choices. When you avoid eye contact, when you mute your opinions, when you hold yourself back. A small voice inside begins to challenge those moments. A friend asks for input during a meeting, and instead of shrinking, you speak. Just a few words, nothing earth-shattering. But it's enough. Someone listens. someone nods, and the ceiling doesn't fall. That's when you realize confidence doesn't appear before the action, it grows after it. Each small act becomes a brick, not in a wall, but in a foundation. You start to understand that fear is not a monster, it's a messenger. It's telling you where to go, not what to avoid. Every time you move toward it, its power fades a little more. The truth is, confidence is not a gift from the world. It's a decision you make again and again to trust yourself despite the noise. That night, as rain hums against your window, you walk outside, letting the city lights blur around you. You see people rushing past, all of them wearing masks of composure, and suddenly you know you're not the only one pretending. Everyone is carrying invisible battles. Everyone fears failure, rejection, being judged. The difference between the confident and the fearful isn't that one feels brave and the other doesn't. It's that one chooses to act anyway. You stop beneath a flickering streetlight and feel something shift. You no longer crave the illusion of fearlessness. You crave the truth, the kind that comes from facing what scares you and doing it anyway. You whisper to yourself, "No more hiding." The words echo through the night. The light changes. You take a step forward. Days pass. You begin to see the pattern more clearly now. The moments you shrink when praised, the times you apologize for existing, the way you hesitate to take up space. But now you challenge those habits. When the voice of doubt returns, you meet it with quiet defiance. Watch me. You start trusting yourself again, not because you're perfect, but because you're showing up. You're proving, step by step, that you can depend on yourself. That's what unshakable confidence really is. Not arrogance, not loudness, but trust. The kind that says, "I've fallen before and I can rise again." You look at your reflection one morning, and for the first time, you don't see weakness. You see growth, the same scars, the same eyes, but something new behind them. A spark of certainty that you can rebuild, that you can rise, that you can lead your own story again. You stare at the mirror one last time that night. The heartbeat returns, steady now, not trembling. You whisper the truth that started it all. The journey doesn't begin when fear disappears. It begins when you stop letting it decide for you. You take a deep breath, shoulders squared, eyes steady, and say quietly to your reflection, "It's time to fight back." The light flares. The screen fades to black. There's a moment, right after you decide to change, when the world begins to whisper. At first, it's faint, a quiet murmur beneath the rhythm of your day, but then it grows louder, sharper, heavier. The voices, the opinions, the judgments, they come from everywhere, from the people you know and the ones you don't, from your past, your family, your workplace, your own reflection. Are you sure you can do this? Don't get ahead of yourself. You're not that kind of person. These words hang in the air like invisible weights, pressing down on your chest, pulling you back to where the familiar safety of who you used to be. You try to ignore them, but their echoes follow you everywhere. They speak through your phone screen, your social feed, your friends' half smiles. They hide inside compliments that sound like warnings. Every time you take a step forward, they whisper, "What will people think?" And you pause, because somewhere deep inside, you've been trained to care. You've been trained to measure your worth through the eyes of others, to believe that validation equals value. You remember your childhood, those moments when your ideas were dismissed, when your voice was laughed at, when you were told to stay in your lane. Those memories built invisible walls around you. They became the filter through which you see yourself today, even now, when you want to speak up in a meeting, to share your thoughts. Something holds you back, that old, familiar fear of being judged. You smile, nod, stay silent, and convince yourself it's not the right time. But deep down, you know, it's not the time that's wrong. It's the permission you never gave yourself. The world's voices are loud because your inner voice is faint. You've neglected it for too long. You've drowned it beneath expectations and noise. But that voice, your true self, still exists. It's waiting, trembling, beneath the surface, asking only one thing: when will you listen to me again? One evening, you find yourself sitting by a window, the city lights flickering in the distance. You can hear cars, sirens, laughter, life happening outside. But inside, it's just you and the noise inside your head. The doubts, the comparisons, the opinions, they clash like waves in a storm. You close your eyes. You take a deep breath. For the first time, instead of running from the noise, you decide to face it. You start to ask, whose voice is this? You hear your teacher's voice telling you you're not good enough. You hear your friend's sarcastic tone when you talked about your dream. You hear your parents' fear disguised as advice. And then you hear your own voice, soft, uncertain, but honest. I just want to be free. That sentence hits you like lightning. You realize most of the opinions that control you don't even belong to you. They're borrowed fears, hand-me-down insecurities, echoes of other people's limitations. You open your eyes and feel something shift inside. It's not peace yet, it's clarity. The awareness that you've been carrying voices that were never yours to carry. And now you begin the process of letting them go. It starts small. You stop apologizing for things that don't need apologies. You start saying no without explaining why. You share your thoughts even when your voice shakes. And every time you do, those external voices grow a little quieter. The noise doesn't disappear overnight. It never does. But you learn to turn the volume down. You begin to recognize the difference between the voice that protects you and the one that limits you. At work, you face your first real test. You've been holding an idea inside for weeks. Something bold, something different. Normally, you dismiss it, but this time, you don't. During the meeting, your heart races. The old voices start whispering again. Don't embarrass yourself. You'll sound foolish. Stay quiet. But you remember what silence has cost you all these years. So you inhale deeply and speak. Your voice wavers at first, but then it steadies. You finish your thought. The room goes silent. And then someone nods. Someone else says, "That's actually a great idea." That moment is small, but it's everything. It's not about impressing others. It's about reclaiming your voice. You walk home that evening not taller, but lighter. You've just discovered that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about speaking even when your fear still lingers in your throat. Later that night, as you lie in bed, you hear the voices again, but this time they sound different. They're not commands anymore. They're just noise. They don't decide who you are. You do. You start to rewrite the narrative. Every morning you remind yourself, I am not their opinion. I am not their expectation. I am not their fear. You write those words on a sticky note and place it on your mirror. The same mirror that once showed you only your reflection of doubt. Now, it becomes your witness of rebirth. Days pass, and you notice something powerful. The more you listen to your own voice, the stronger it becomes. The more you act from authenticity, the less approval you need. You start to understand what unshakable confidence really means. Not arrogance, not perfection, but alignment. The calm, grounded knowing that your truth is enough. You remember a line from the book that echoes in your mind. Confidence doesn't mean you're always right. It means you're not afraid to be wrong. That line becomes your armor because now you realize every great creator, every leader, every soul who ever changed something, they all faced the same voices. The world told them to stop, to play small, to conform, but they didn't. They listened to something deeper, their own conviction, and that's what made them unstoppable. One morning, as the sun rises, you stand before the mirror again, the same one from the first chapter. But this time, the person staring back isn't asking questions, they're answering them. The eyes are steady, the breathing is calm, the silence feels sacred. You've come far, but you know this is only the beginning, because while you've quieted the world outside, there's another storm waiting within. The inner critic, the harshest voice of all. As the light hits your face, a thought surfaces. If I can silence the world, can I silence myself? The screen fades to black. A slow heartbeat echoes, and then A whisper. There comes a moment in every life when the truth quietly stands before you, not as a shout, not as a crisis, but as a whisper, a simple, haunting question. What if the person you've been trying to be was never really you? At first, you resist it. The thought feels dangerous, blasphemous even, because you've spent years crafting this version of yourself. You've built it brick by brick, every smile, every habit, every carefully chosen word. You've made it look perfect, presentable, acceptable. The world knows this version of you. They respect it, maybe even admire it. But when you're alone, when the masks fall and the applause fades, you feel it, that quiet emptiness, the soft ache of living a lie. You wake up one morning, sunlight bleeding through the curtains. Everything looks the same, the bed, the walls, the phone beside your pillow. But something inside feels heavier, like your chest carries a secret you can't ignore anymore. You go through the motions, shower, coffee, the same routine you followed for years. And yet, as you look in the mirror, you catch a glimpse of something unsettling, your own eyes, tired of pretending. You've been performing for so long that you've forgotten who the audience is. You've worn confidence like armor, but underneath, you've been terrified, terrified of not being enough, of failing, of being seen without the polish. The truth is brutal. The life you're living isn't yours. It's a collection of borrowed dreams, shaped by expectations, fears, and the quiet hunger for approval. You remember the first time you lied to yourself. Maybe it was small, pretending to like something you didn't, agreeing with a choice that didn't feel right. It seemed harmless then, but over time, those little compromises multiplied, layering over your true self like dust on glass. And one day, the reflection looking back at you wasn't yours anymore. Now, that reflection feels like a stranger. You've become the sum of everything the world told you to be. The obedient student, the polite friend, the reliable employee, the person who doesn't make waves. But beneath that quiet obedience, there's something wild and alive, something that's been silenced for years. You hear it when you're alone, that faint voice whispering, "This isn't who you are." You try to drown it out with noise, with work, with distraction. You scroll through your phone chasing validation, hoping that likes and messages will fill the void. But the voice doesn't stop, because it's the only honest thing left. There's a scene that keeps replaying in your head, a memory from years ago. You're younger, freer, unafraid. You had dreams then, you spoke without caution. You believed the world was wide open, but somewhere along the way, life started teaching you to be smaller, to play safe, to choose what was practical over what was real. And little by little, you stopped asking what you wanted. The camera pans. You're sitting at your desk, your hands resting on a keyboard, the glow of a screen reflecting on your face. The cursor blinks, steady, patient, like a heartbeat. You stare at it, feeling that familiar hollowness again. And suddenly, it hits you. This is it. This is the lie you've been living, the one that says, keep going like this, it's fine. But it's not. You stand up, pacing the room. The air feels thick. Every object around you, your framed achievements, your phone, your planner, they all seem to whisper the same thing. You built your life around what others expected, not what you believed, not what you loved, not what made you feel alive. You sink into the chair and whisper to yourself, then who am I? The silence that follows isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the beginning of truth, because to find your real self, you must first face the false one. You start peeling back the layers. You question everything, your goals, your friendships, your routines. You realize how many of your choices were made from fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being different. You see how many of your yeses were really nos swallowed in silence. You begin to understand that you've been living inside a story written by someone else. And now, for the first time, you're ready to take the pen back. It's terrifying, this honesty, because when the lies fall away, so do the excuses. You can't blame the world anymore. You can't hide behind circumstances. You're left with raw, unfiltered truth, and it demands courage. You walk outside that night. The sky is wide and starless. The city hums beneath the horizon. Every light you see represents someone else's life, their choices, their lies, their truths. And for a moment, you realize how easy it is to get lost in the noise, to believe that everyone else knows what they're doing, but deep down, everyone's fighting the same battle, the war between who they are and who they pretend to be. You take a deep breath. The air is cool, sharp. You feel it fill your lungs like a promise. No more, you whisper. No more pretending. You know it won't be easy. You know people will question the change. They'll ask why you're different, why you're distant, why you've stopped playing the role they assigned you. But that's the price of truth. Authenticity always demands sacrifice. In that moment, you make a decision. Small, but seismic. You choose honesty over approval. You choose growth over comfort. You choose to start again, not as who you were told to be, but as who you truly are. You return home and write it down. The truth, your truth, the dreams you buried, the passions you silenced, the parts of yourself you were too afraid to show. You write until your hand shakes and the words blur. And when you finish, you realize something profound. Freedom doesn't begin when life gets easier. It begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. A quote from the book echoes in your mind. Confidence is not found in who you think you should be. It's found in finally accepting who you already are. You close your eyes, repeating those words like a prayer. For the first time in years, you feel a quiet peace, the kind that doesn't need validation, the kind that comes from truth. You're not there yet, not fully, but you've taken the first real step. The camera slowly pulls back. You're sitting in a dimly lit room, the paper in your hands, your face calm and certain. The faint sound of a heartbeat returns, slow, steady, alive. The voice inside you, the real one, finally speaks. You're not broken. You are just buried beneath the lie. You look up, your eyes steady, and whisper, "It's time to live differently." The lights fade to black. A soft echo lingers in the silence, the sound of chains breaking, the sound of truth awakening, and then a final whisper. Have you ever felt that moment when everything inside you just gives up, when the walls you built to protect yourself begin to crumble, and you can't tell whether you're breaking down or breaking free? That's the breaking point, that invisible line between who you were and who you're meant to become. You don't plan for it. You don't prepare for it. One day, it just happens. It begins quietly. The morning looks the same. Sunlight dripping through the curtains, the hum of the city outside, the same cup of coffee in your hand. But something in you feels off. You're tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that lives deep inside your bones. The kind that comes from pretending too long, from holding up an image of strength while you're silently falling apart. You look into the mirror, and for the first time, you don't recognize the person staring back. There's a question behind those eyes. What am I doing with my life? You go through your day like a machine, replying to messages, showing up to meetings, nodding at people who ask, "How are you?" You say, "I'm good," but the words taste hollow. You feel disconnected, like you're watching your life happen from the outside. Every smile feels forced. Every achievement feels meaningless. The applause you once craved now echoes like empty noise, and deep down you know, this isn't living. It's surviving. Then one day, something small pushes you over the edge. Maybe it's a comment someone makes. Maybe it's a plan that falls apart. Or maybe it's nothing at all, just that silent accumulation of everything you've buried inside. You're driving home late, city lights blurring past, and suddenly it hits you. You can't do this anymore. You pull over. The silence in the car is deafening. Your hands tremble on the steering wheel. Your heart feels heavy, like it's carrying years of unspoken truth. And in that suffocating stillness, You finally whisper the words you've been avoiding. I'm not okay. Tears come, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and raw. They carry the weight of every suppressed emotion, every compromise, every dream you buried to fit into a mold that was never meant for you. And as you cry, something unexpected happens. You feel lighter, because pain, when faced, doesn't destroy you. It cleanses you. You remember a line from the book. True confidence doesn't come from never falling apart. It comes from knowing that when you do, you can rebuild. Those words echo inside you, cutting through the noise. You realize that the breaking point isn't your end, it's your beginning. That night, you sit in silence. No phone, no distractions, no masks, just you and the truth you've been avoiding. You think about all the things you've done to keep others happy, all the times you said yes when your soul screams no, all the ways you've abandoned yourself in the name of approval. You see it all now, laid bare before you. The pattern, the fear, the self-doubt, and then comes the realization you've been fighting the wrong battle. All this time, you've been trying to prove your worth to others, to be good enough, smart enough, loved enough. But you were never supposed to earn your worth. You were supposed to remember it. The war you were fighting wasn't outside, it was within. Between the part of you that wanted to break free and the part that feared what would happen if you did. You look around your room, the trophies, the certificates, the reminders of everything you've achieved. They suddenly look different. They used to define you. Now they just remind you of how much you've sacrificed to feel enough. You take a deep breath and whisper, no more. Outside, the night is silent. The world hasn't changed, but something in you has. You realize that you don't need to hold everything together anymore. It's okay to fall apart, because sometimes destruction is creation in disguise. The person you were, the people pleaser, the overthinker, the perfectionist, that version of you has reached its limit. It's time to let it die so that something new can live. The next morning, you wake up before the alarm. There's still pain, still uncertainty, but also a strange sense of calm. You make your coffee, but this time you drink it slowly, really tasting it. You step outside and feel the cold morning air on your skin. The world feels the same, yet somehow you see it differently. You realize that the ground you're standing on is not as fragile as you thought. You've survived every dark night, every heartbreak, every failure, and you're still here, still breathing, still capable of rebuilding. You remember another line from the book. Confidence is not the absence of fear or failure. It's the courage to rebuild yourself after both. That becomes your mantra. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to take the next step, one honest, imperfect step at a time. You begin to rebuild, not from the illusion of who you were, but from the truth of who you are. The camera pans out, you walking through the morning light, your shadow stretching long behind you. The past is still there, but it no longer defines you. You're walking towards something new, something real. And even though you don't know what lies ahead, you know one thing for sure. You'll never go back to pretending again. Because once you've reached your breaking point, you understand breaking is not the opposite of strength. It's how strength is born. The music swells. The light grows brighter. Your silhouette fades into it, becoming one with the horizon. And just before the scene cuts to black, a voice whispers, "This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your rise." Have you ever noticed that the loudest battles are not fought in the world outside, but in the silence of your own mind? The world sees your smile, your strength, your calm, but it never sees the storm within. It never hears the voices that whisper, "You're not good enough." The battlefield is invisible, yet it's where your destiny is decided. And tonight, you find yourself standing in the middle of it. It's late. The city outside your window is asleep, but your thoughts aren't. They move restlessly through your head. Doubts, fears, regrets, endless what ifs. You lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why your mind feels like a war zone. Every thought clashes with another. One side says, "You can do this." The other sneers, "Who do you think you are?" And you, caught between the two, feel like a soldier fighting a war that never ends. You wake up exhausted, not because your body didn't rest, but because your mind never stopped fighting. You drag yourself through the day, smile at people, nod through conversations, but deep inside, you're still battling yourself. Every failure replays like a broken record. Every criticism echoes louder than 1,000 compliments. And somewhere in that noise, your confidence begins to crumble again. You catch a reflection in a window, tired eyes, heavy shoulders. You don't look like a warrior, but that's exactly what you are. You've been fighting a war no one else can see. The war between the part of you that wants to grow and the part that wants to stay safe. Between your desire to rise and your fear of falling. In the book, there's a line that hits you deeply. Confidence is not built by silencing the inner voices. It's built by learning which one to listen to. You read it twice, then a third time, because suddenly it makes sense. You realize that the goal isn't to eliminate doubt. Doubt will always exist. The goal is to choose faith despite it. You start to pay attention to the voices in your head. One of them is cruel, sharp, mocking, unforgiving. It keeps reminding you of your mistakes, your flaws, your failures. But then there's another, softer, quieter, almost drowned out by the noise. It whispers, "Keep going. You've survived worse. You're growing." And for the first time, you begin to listen. That night, you sit down with a notebook. You write every negative thought that has ever haunted you. Every "I can't," every "I'm not enough." The page fills quickly. When you look at it, your chest feels heavy because that's what you've been carrying all along. Then, with a deep breath, you start crossing them out, one by one. For each lie, you write a truth. "I'm not enough" becomes "I'm learning." "I always fail" becomes "I'm still trying." "I'm broken" becomes "I'm healing." As you write, you realize something powerful. Those negative voices were never the truth. They were echoes of fear, conditioning, and comparison. They were fragments of other people's opinions that you adopted as your own. But none of them define you. You do. You close your eyes and take a deep breath. The noise begins to fade. You imagine yourself standing on an open battlefield, the fog clearing, the sky above you wide and infinite. For years, you've been fighting shadows. But now, for the first time, you see your true enemy. Not failure, not rejection, not the world, but fear itself. And fear doesn't vanish when you run from it. It vanishes when you face it. You remember another line from the book. Fear and faith have the same demand, to believe in something that hasn't happened yet. The choice is yours. You let those words settle in. The war inside you was never about right or wrong. It was about belief. Fear made you believe in your weakness. Faith reminds you of your strength. And in this quiet moment, you choose faith. Days turn into weeks. You begin to notice changes, subtle at first. The negative voice still speaks, but it's weaker now, less convincing. When it says, "You can't," you reply, "Watch me." When it says, "You'll fail," you whisper, "Then I'll try again." Each small act of defiance becomes a victory. Each conscious choice to believe in yourself becomes a weapon. You start living differently. You take small risks, speak up in places you once stayed silent, try things you once feared, not because the fear is gone, but because you've learned to walk through it. You realize that confidence isn't a roar. It's a steady heartbeat that says, "I will not stop." One evening, you stand before the mirror again, the same reflection, but the eyes, they're different now. There's fire in them, strength, clarity. You smile not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand. The battle inside isn't something to win once. It's something to master every day. And every time you choose courage over comfort, truth over fear, love over doubt, you win another round. You step outside. The world is loud again. Voices, opinions, chaos. But this time, it doesn't shake you. Because now you know where the real fight is and who you are in it. You're not the victim of your thoughts. You're the commander of them. The camera follows as you walk down the street, the sound of your footsteps echoing like a heartbeat. In the background, a voice narrates softly. The strongest warriors are not those who conquer the world, but those who conquer themselves. You stop for a moment, look up at the sky, and smile. You realize you're no longer fighting to prove yourself. You're fighting to become yourself. And as the light fades into gold, a single phrase appears on the screen. You've won today's battle, but the war for your greatness continues. What if confidence isn't something you're born with, but something you build, piece by piece, like a living structure? What if it has bones, a heartbeat, and a pulse shaped by your choices, your failures, your courage? What if every scar you've ever carried wasn't proof of weakness, but the architecture of your strength? Tonight, you're about to discover that confidence isn't a mystery. It's an anatomy, one you've been forming all your life without even realizing it. It starts in the quiet moments. You wake up one morning, staring at the ceiling, feeling that familiar weight pressing on your chest. The same thoughts circle your mind. What if I'm not enough? What if I fail again? You drag yourself out of bed into a day that feels heavier than it should. The mirror greets you not with reflection, but with resistance. You look, and the voice inside whispers, "Who are you to dream that big?" That voice, that's the first bone in the anatomy of confidence. Doubt. It's fragile, sharp, always threatening to crack, but it's also the foundation because every structure begins with something uncertain, something that must be tested. You walk through your morning routine in silence. The world outside seems alive, people walking with purpose, eyes filled with direction. You wonder how they do it, how they seem so sure of themselves when you're still learning to stand. At work, you hesitate before speaking. Ideas float in your head, brilliant but unspoken. You want to share them, but that invisible wall rises again. The fear of being wrong. You stay quiet, and as the conversation moves on without you, a familiar ache settles in your chest. You tell yourself, next time. But next time never comes, does it? And yet, in that hesitation lies another truth, a seed. The second part of confidence is anatomy, awareness. You're aware of your silence, aware of your fear. Most people live blind to it, but you see it. That means you're already one step ahead, because awareness is the beginning of control. You can't rebuild what you can't recognize. Days pass. You begin to notice the moments that steal your confidence. The glance from someone you admire, the rejection that stings a little too deep, the memory of past failures that replays like an old film. Each of these moments adds another layer to your understanding. You begin to realize that confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move despite it. A voice from the book echoes in your mind. Confidence isn't knowing you'll win. It's knowing you'll be okay, even if you don't. That line sits with you. It gnaws at you until, one day, it clicks. Confidence isn't about perfection. It's about resilience. It's the third layer, belief, not in outcomes, but in your ability to rise. You start testing it, speaking up once in a meeting, making a choice without overthinking, standing a little taller. And though your hands still tremble, something feels different. A flicker, a spark. Each small action becomes a heartbeat in this anatomy you're building. You start saying no when you mean it, instead of pleasing everyone. You start trying things that scare you. The presentation, the difficult conversation, the risk you kept postponing. And each time you survive, you grow. The fear doesn't vanish, but it loses its grip. You begin to understand confidence isn't loud. It's not arrogance or bravado. It's quiet strength. It's that calm voice inside you that says, "I'll figure it out." You start hearing that voice more often. Sometimes faint, sometimes firm, but always there. That's the fourth layer, trust. Trusting yourself enough to take the next step even when the ground looks uncertain. You start building rituals, little ones, waking early, journaling, taking cold showers, running when your body says stop. They're not just habits, they're bricks, each one reinforcing your mental walls, each one saying, I can rely on myself. And as that trust deepens, your posture changes, your tone steadies. The world hasn't changed, you have. Then, one day, life tests your construction, a failure, a heartbreak, a moment that could shatter you. The old you would have collapsed, but now you breathe. You still feel the pain. It's real, raw, but beneath it, there's something solid. You don't fall apart this time. You bend, but you don't break. That's the fifth and final element, resilience, the marrow of confidence, the living proof that you've built something unshakable. You stand in front of the mirror again, same reflection, but different presence. You look into your own eyes and you see it now. Confidence isn't an emotion, it's a structure, living, breathing, evolving. Every scar is a story, every setback, a layer of armor, every act of courage, a pulse that keeps it alive. The book's voice returns one last time. Confidence is not a gift you're given. It's a muscle you build through repetition, resistance, and rising again. You realize that's the truth. You've been training this muscle your whole life. Every time you stood up after falling, every time you spoke when your voice shook, every time you dared to hope again, confidence is you, rebuilt from every broken piece. Outside, the world looks the same, but when you walk now, the ground feels different beneath your feet, firmer, responsive, like it recognizes who's walking on it. People glance at you, but their opinions don't matter anymore, because the architecture of your confidence doesn't stand on approval, it stands on truth. The camera follows as you walk into the sunlight, shoulders squared, eyes steady. The narration deepens. Confidence isn't about being fearless. It's about being brave enough to feel the fear and still move forward. You stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and smile, not because the journey's over, but because you finally understand what it means to begin. And as the frame fades to black, a single line appears. You are the architect of your confidence. Now, build without fear. What if greatness isn't built in grand moments, but in the quiet, almost invisible ones, the ones no one notices but you? What if the key to transformation isn't in giant leaps, but in the smallest, simplest steps taken with quiet consistency? You've always been told that success comes from ambition, from thinking big, from dreaming without limits. But what if that very belief has been your biggest obstacle? What if the real secret lies not in doing more, but in doing small things better, again and again, until they change everything? The story begins in the dim light of early morning. You're sitting at the edge of your bed, the room still heavy with silence. You promised yourself, today will be different. You'd start that workout, send that email, write that first page. But the weight of yesterday's failures presses on your chest. The voice inside whispers, what difference will one day make? You almost believe it. You almost give in. But then something small happens. You stand. Just stand. That's it. A small act, so simple it feels insignificant, yet somehow it shifts something inside you. You brush your teeth, make your bed, drink a glass of water. Tiny actions, mechanical, unremarkable. But for the first time in weeks, they feel deliberate, controlled. The book's words echo faintly in your mind. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And in that moment, you begin to understand the smallest habits are not meaningless. They are votes. Each one is a whisper that says, this is who I am becoming. As the days unfold, you start testing this new understanding. You stop chasing perfection. You stop waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect mood, the perfect timing. Instead, you lower the bar, absurdly low. Just one push-up, just 10 minutes of writing, just 5 minutes of meditation. And though your mind scoffs, this is too little to matter, something remarkable begins to happen. You start keeping promises to yourself. At first, nothing looks different. The mirror still reflects the same tired eyes. The numbers don't move. The progress seems invisible. But deep beneath the surface, something is shifting. Identity. Each small win carves a new path in your brain, like footprints on fresh snow. The first ones are shallow, fragile, easily erased, but each repetition deepens the trail. Each act says, I can. Each repetition quiets the doubt that once screamed inside you. You begin to see the pattern. Every great achievement in your life, every transformation, was born the same way. Not from explosions, but from echoes, from tiny, almost forgettable moments that compounded silently until they became unstoppable. The athlete doesn't become strong in one day, but through thousands of tiny, unseen workouts. The writer doesn't craft brilliance in one sitting, but through endless drafts, each one slightly better than the last. And you are no different. There are days when you fall back, when the old voice returns. See, you missed a day. You're failing again. But this time, you don't surrender. You remember another truth from the book. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. So you show up again the next day. Imperfectly, awkwardly, but you show up. And that's when you realize consistency is more powerful than intensity. It's not about how big the action is, but how often it happens. Weeks pass. You stop counting goals and start counting days shown up. You no longer measure success by how far you've gone, but by whether you've moved at all. And slowly, the curve starts to bend. You notice small changes. The pants fit differently. Your energy lasts longer. Your mind feels sharper. These are your small wins, humble, quiet, but deeply powerful. The world won't notice them. There will be no applause, no viral post, no instant reward. But deep inside, you feel it. The subtle shift from trying to being. You've crossed an invisible threshold. You're no longer chasing change. You become the change. One night you look back on your journey, not months or years, but the small moments. The first morning you chose to get up instead of snoozing the alarm. The day you said no to distraction. The moment you wrote one more line, did one more rep, took one more breath. Each one felt trivial then, but now you see. These were the bricks that built your new life. And as you realize this, a deeper understanding dawns on you. The power of small wins isn't just about success, it's about identity. Because every small win is proof that you are capable, proof that you can change, proof that you are no longer the person who gives up easily. You whisper to yourself, almost in disbelief, it was never about the goal. It was always about who I became on the way there. The music swells. The camera zooms out. You're walking through the same city streets that once made you feel small, but everything looks different now. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Every step feels deliberate. Every breath feels earned. The voice of the narrator rises, steady and powerful. Success is not one giant leap. It's a series of small, deliberate steps taken by someone who refuses to stop. You close your eyes, take one final breath, and smile, because you finally understand it was never the size of the win that mattered. It was the act of winning, every single day. And as the screen fades to black, one last line appears. Tiny victories, infinite impact. What if the enemy you've been fighting all along was never outside you? What if the war you thought existed in the world, against failure, against rejection, against fear, has always been a war within your own mind? And what if the darkness you keep running from has the part of you that's been begging to be understood? The screen fades in. You stand alone in a dimly lit room, surrounded by silence so heavy it feels alive. There's no noise, no distraction, just the steady rhythm of your breath and the faint echo of your thoughts. It's night, but not the kind of night that invites rest. This is the hour when truth whispers. When your reflection in the mirror looks less like you and more like a stranger, you meet your own gaze. There's exhaustion there, not from work, but from pretending to be fine, pretending to be confident, pretending you don't care when people walk away, when dreams fade, when the world moves on without you. Deep down, you feel it, the weight of everything you've buried, the anger, the guilt, the fear, the voice that says, you'll never be enough. And for the first time, you don't look away. You spent your life trying to silence this voice. You drowned it in distractions, in overwork, in validation, in perfectionism. You told yourself that if you could just do more, become more, maybe the voice would fade, but it never did, because that voice isn't your enemy. It's your shadow. The broken, bruised, rejected parts of you that you've locked away because they didn't fit the version of you that the world accepts. The camera closes in. Your reflection flickers, half in light, half in shadow. It's like two versions of you staring each other down, the one the world sees and the one you hide. And suddenly, a thought pierces through. What if your shadow isn't here to destroy you, but to free you? Brianna Wiest wrote. Your triggers are not meant to punish you. They are meant to show you where you are still held captive. The truth hits hard. All those things that make you feel small, angry, scared. They're not random. They're maps, pointers to where your wounds still live. Every time you're jealous, every time you feel rejected, every time you sabotage your own progress, it's your shadow knocking, asking to be seen. The scene shifts, flashes of moments from your life. The time you quit when things got tough. The job you didn't apply for because you didn't think you were ready. The relationship you pushed away before it could hurt you. Every decision shaped not by logic, but by fear disguised as self-protection. And now you see it clearly. You were never afraid of failing. You were afraid of being seen failing. You were never afraid of rejection. You were afraid of confirming the belief that you were never lovable to begin with. The enemy wasn't the world, it was the story you've been telling yourself. The shadow isn't darkness, it's just the part of you that never got light. You close your eyes. The silence feels softer now. You take a deep breath, slow, deliberate, and for the first time in years, you whisper to yourself, it's okay. It's okay that you're scared. It's okay that you're flawed. It's okay that you still don't have it all figured out, because this confrontation, this trembling acceptance is the beginning of real strength. The room brightens slightly, a faint dawn light sneaking through the curtains. You look around and realize the room hasn't changed, you have. The moment you stopped fighting your shadow, it lost its power. The monster under the bed vanished when you turned on the light. You think back to the book's words. You do not build a new life by destroying the old one. You build a new life by transforming what was. And suddenly, you understand. Healing isn't about erasing your past. It's about integrating it, taking every wound, every scar, every broken piece, and saying, you belong. You start to see your life differently now. Every failure wasn't proof of weakness, but a lesson in disguise. Every rejection wasn't a wall, but a redirection. Every breakdown wasn't an end, but an initiation. The camera follows as you step outside. The world's still dark, but the first hint of sunrise painting the sky. You inhale the cold morning air. The light doesn't flood the world all at once. It creeps in slowly, shyly, as if asking permission. And that's what transformation feels like. Not an explosion, but an unfolding. You begin to walk, the gravel crunching beneath your feet. Each step feels lighter than the last, because now you know. The parts of yourself you once hated are the very ones that can guide you home. You recall another line from the book. You will meet the parts of yourself you've been running from. They will not destroy you. They will demand your tenderness. And you smile, because tenderness, not perfection, not control, was what you've been missing all along. Your journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before fear taught you to shrink. It's about taking the shadow by the hand and saying, let's rise together. The camera pans wide, you walking toward the horizon, the sun slowly emerging behind you. Light and shadow now coexist on your face, and somehow it's beautiful. The two halves no longer fight. They complete each other. A soft voice, your inner voice, whispers, maybe confidence isn't the absence of fear, but the acceptance of all that you are, even when you're afraid. The music swells. You stop, take one last deep breath, and the world feels open, infinite. But just before the scene fades, a question lingers in the air, haunting, electric. If the shadow within no longer defines you, who will you become next?